Okay. Thank you, Mark. So, I run a small agency, which is a service business, and we lost our biggest customer on Monday. But I'm actually going to tell you later why it's kind of a good thing for them and us, and I'm, in a way, quite happy. But first of all, I want to just go through a bit of history, both my own personal history, but also it's become a bit of a history of the publishing or industrial trade publishing industry over the last 30 years, which is how long I've been in it, incredibly enough. I started work after graduating on a magazine called Design Engineering, which is gone. What's New in Design, which is gone. Process Engineering, I think, might still be hanging around, at least online. What's New in Processing, I think that's gone. So the magazine industry does turn over pretty highly. I got offered an editor's job on a launch magazine called Industrial Technology, which is still around. Hooray! That was in 1988. And in trade publishing then, things were very different because obviously we had no internet. People found out about stuff through the post, those of you who are old enough to remember. Magazines all came with bingo cards at the back, and you just go through the magazine and you'd write down the numbers next to every advert and every piece of editorial that you're interested in. You'd send it back to the magazine, they'd do all the processing, send it out to the various manufacturers who gave you details, and eventually you'd get something back in the post. And it actually all worked very efficiently, and it was very, very good. Unfortunately, really probably unfortunately for the users, the days of the bingo card became numbered during the 1990s, mainly because the better magazines producing numbers were actually the smaller ones, and the big ones with the big budgets were terrible at generating numbers. So they kind of sidelined the whole idea of bingo cards, and they fell out of use, which was a real shame. Industrial Technology that I helped launch in 1988 took over from a magazine called Advanced Industrial Technology. We became less advanced. And that was entirely advertising. I mean, it was absolutely unashamedly, it knew its market. It wasn't advertorial, it was entirely advertising. It was just adverts. And it had been very successful because it did a job. Engineers who received it just went through the adverts to find the stuff they wanted, filled in the bingo cards, job done. But again, in the same way as it was kind of not remarkable enough for the publishing industry, that went in the way of a lot of other magazines. So I got my first editorial break when Advanced Industrial Technology relaunched with lots of editorial in it. And we had Industrial Technology. So you can see we were in a situation in the late 80s where there were magazines with only advertising in that were geared up totally to response, and advertisers could take out an advert, see what response they were getting, and decide whether to advertise again. Indeed, in Advanced Industrial Technology, when it existed, did a lot of its sales that way. It was payment by results. So you would say, I'm going to pay 500 quid for my advert, but I want 40 responses back, and if you didn't, you got money off. And that's the way, that was brilliant. Brilliant for the advertisers. Of course, the publishing industry decided to go the way of this sort of vague thing where, well, you take an advert out and you don't really know who's reading it, and you don't know who's responding to it, and you don't know whether it was any good, so can we have another one, please? It worked anyway. I edited Industrial Technology for its first 10 years, until 1999, when I looked at what was happening on the internet, and we actually had a really busy website by then, which was unlike most magazines. I don't know, they just didn't see it was very complementary to what they did, whereas we did. And I told the guys on the magazine we had to go online, really take over. And they weren't that keen, the sales guys. They knew selling advertising or print advertising. and they didn't really like the idea of selling advertising on the website. So I said, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to leave and do it myself. And they called my bluff, and I did. So I founded a site called Engineering Talk in 1999. There is a reason I'm telling you my life story, by the way. We'll get there in a second. And Engineering Talk was terrifically successful, far more than we ever thought it would be. And off the back of it, we founded a load of other sites like Manufacturing Talk, Packaging Talk. I mean, there were just loads. And it was great. Well, the problem with it was it had the same business model, really, as the magazines, which is take out an advert with us for a fixed amount of money, and we're not going to guarantee how many people are going to look at it, and we're not going to guarantee you getting results, and if you get no results, you ain't getting any money back. Just how magazines worked. And it wasn't really the right model to have, to be honest. 2002, we'd been going a couple of years, and Google really started to take off. There were other search engines, I'm sure those of you who were around at the time will remember them. But Google suddenly burst through because its results were much better. And what you saw in Google in that sort of 2002, 2003 period was the classic 10 blue links results, which we can see here. And really, really simple stuff. I think we'd all like to see those days back again, to be honest. But sadly, Google wouldn't be able to provide the service it does now if that was all there was to it. Scroll forward about 5 years, and suddenly advertising's appearing on Google. First of all, we had the adverts which went down the right-hand side, and then they crept over to the top. And so suddenly the 10 blue links were starting to get surrounded by advertising. But what Google did, and the reason its advertising took off and was so successful, was it went all the way back to the payment by results model. And that's exactly what happened. You paid Google when you got clicks. And that was all there was to it. In fact, Google even worked for a while trying out a model where you could set something up on your site that was an actual physical action, like a brochure download or a physical name and address inquiry, and only pay them for that. But they've gone back to the main model, which is just payment per click. But that's where we were. That's back to where magazines were doing in the 1980s, or a few of them were. And you would think this would absolutely blow away everything else in terms of response, because no response, no payment. What's not to like for advertisers? And that's exactly what's happened. Google has slowly got somewhat more subtle with its advertising. You often now see pages like this one where the top 3, possibly even 4 results are adverts, indicated by a tiny little logo that says ad, and then there's the normal free results underneath that. Or you can get all sorts of other stuff on Google now. That's a sort of typical page you might see. Goodness me, there's only one free result, or free normal one, down there, right hidden down the bottom. There's all sorts of other stuff, videos, shopping results. It's incredible. However, whilst we can accuse Google of over-commercialism to some extent, it's a very, very data-driven company. It wouldn't be putting this stuff there if that wasn't what people wanted. They will run those shopping ads across the top on some searches, and they'll not run it on identical searches, and they'll find that people click on the shopping ads. It's what they want. It doesn't matter whether they're paying money or not. So it's not just forcing them on you. It really is driven by what people want. And the result of all that is that Google is now making more money than some small countries. In fact, it's now elbowed its way into the top 50 companies in the world. And when you think everyone else in that top 50 is probably selling, very large amounts of physical goods, employing incredible numbers of people in stores and, oil fields and goodness knows what else. It's quite incredible what it's done. And nearly all that money started off with those tiny little ads down the side. And even now, although the ads have got bigger, that's where the money's coming from. And it puts everybody on a level playing field. You can all do these little ads, and it's really not hard. If you're not doing it, why not? It doesn't make any sense to be. I assume if you're not doing Google ads at the moment, you're not doing any advertising, because there's no other game in town. The ads have actually got a lot more sophisticated and complicated. You might typically see adverts now with, instead of the one headline, they've got 3 headlines side by side. They've got about 3 times as much text descriptive. They've got star ratings from Google reviews. It's got little slogans, and it's got a whole load of small links underneath. You might see addresses, phone numbers. You can have enormous adverts. Again, you specify this stuff with your advert when you take it out with Google, but they decide what elements go in the ad, and that's, again, entirely data-driven. So if any of you are advertisers with Google, and you'll see sometimes, oh, it's printed my phone number. Next time it hasn't. It's printed those little blue links at the bottom. Now it hasn't. And it's just testing it the whole time, testing and testing on an incredible number of parameters to see what works best for you and will make more money for them. So, it is a bit of a win-win. If you run a Google Ads campaign, and by the way, it's now officially called Google Ads and not Google AdWords, which is what everybody called it before, because it's what the name was. You'll see that you're just inundated with data. It's way too much. And for the sort of businesses that I work with, which are your type of businesses, we just don't have the volume of data to really use that. It's not statistically valid. If you're getting 10 clicks a day, even over a year, it's not really possible to deduce an awful lot from it. Certain search terms, you can certainly do that, but a lot of the data that Google gives you, is really for companies getting massive numbers of searches and massive numbers of clicks. So you have to be very selective about what you use. I mean, here we've got, just taking out of a very simple result, some search terms that we're advertising against. And obviously the most important thing are impressions, how many times the ads was shown, and clicks, how many times they were clicked on. That's what you get charged for. Therefore, you get charged so much per click, and there's a total cost on it. It's interesting, and it's very, very complicated how much it costs per click. It's an auction, if you haven't used this before, but it's not as simple as outbidding your competitors. So the ads are published down the page in order, and it's to do with how much you've bid to pay per click. But it's not entirely governed by that, because what Google wants to do is to make as much money as possible. So it would rather show an ad that's going to get clicked on 10 times for 50p a time than an ad that's going to get clicked on once for £1. So you can bid more, but if your ad's not going to get clicked on, and they know, it won't get shown. So it's a lot more complicated than just saying, here's my ad, I want to bid so much. There's a thing called quality score, and quality score has gotten more and more complicated as time's gone on. So effectively what happens is it takes the amount of money you've bid to show your ad, and it multiplies it by the quality score. So if your quality score is 10 out of 10 and you've bid £1, you're going to come higher than someone who's bid £2 but whose quality score is only 1 out of 10, because you just multiply the two together. And the quality score is made up of a rating they've given you by their automated systems of expected click-through rate, which is mainly historically derived, the landing page experience. So it's actually the machine's gone through your ad, looked at the page, said, is that relevant to the advert? And the ad relevance of the actual words in your advert. So if any of you have done a Google Ads campaign and you've ever advertised against a competitor's name, for example, which people do, you'll get a terrible quality score. And the reason for that is you'll score badly on all 3 things. If people have searched for the blue widget company and you're the red widget company, they're not going to click on your ad very much. You can show it as much as you like, but people want to go to the blue widget company's website, so they're going to look at your red widget company ad, but they ain't going to click on it much. So you'll get a low expected click-through rate. When they go through the ad to your landing page, they won't see anything about the blue widget company because you're the red widget company. So again, very low. And you can't use probably can't use the blue widget company's name in your advert. You almost wouldn't want, who would want to anyway? So you're going to get a low score on that. So you'll probably get 1 out of 10, which effectively means you're going to have to bid 10 times as much to appear as the blue widget company itself. So that's kind of the way it works with the bidding. Very hard. Also remember that as you go up the page, the higher you appear with your ad, not only are you paying more per click to get there, but you're going to get clicked on more often, so the actual cost to you will be exponentially higher. So for example, the bottom ad might get 1 click and cost 10p. The top ad might get 10 clicks and cost £1 each, which is £10. That's 100 times as much. So it's keeping a lid on cost is really hard. One of the things we set out to do was to try and work out how companies, businesses that I knew, industrial businesses worked. And one of the things they told us at the beginning was they wanted to spend a fixed amount each month. I love the idea of doing Google Ads, Chris, but I want to spend £500 a month on it. And we said, well, you can't do that because you don't know how many clicks you're going to get and how much they're going to cost. And we worked out a way of doing that, and that everybody loved us for it. So going through from my own history, how did I get here to be effectively being an advertising agent after years as a magazine and website editor, was simply that in 2006, the websites I'd mentioned, like Engineering Talk, were bought by another big publisher, or big magazine publisher, who'd failed to get into the online business, and who approached us and said, can we give you an insane amount of money? And I went, yes, you can. So off we went, and I was stuck with nothing to do about 10 years ago, and companies started approaching me saying, well, you must know a bit about this online stuff, companies like your own. Can you help us with our websites and all sorts of other things, writing for our website? And I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. But it became clear after a while that there was one thing in common across all these companies that were approaching me. They all wanted help with Google Ads because they could see that's where it was going. So I just, very quickly learned how to become an expert in Google Ads, which is all we do now, 10 years later, the business I have. We just do Google Ads. And here's the kicker, we just do it for industrial and engineering companies. So your average advertising agency will work on far more different types of advertising than just Google Ads. And they'll work on a broad range of clients as well. We have this unbelievable niche. We're never going to be that big. But we like it, we really enjoy it. And the thing is, I understand everybody's technology because I wrote about it for years. And I think that's, as Mark kindly said earlier, why they can trust us to get on with things. You can also see within the Google Ads interface all the other advertisers. A lot of people who just do their own Google Ads on a part-time basis and do a perfectly decent job, just never get into this level of detail, but you can see here all the other companies that are advertising against. This is a dealer for Mercedes vans that we were looking at helping a while ago, and it shows you how often your ad's showing for the specific searches you're looking at, what position it's at, how much it overlaps with the other advertisers. So you can see all your competitors and what they're doing, how often your ad appears above them, how often each ad appears at the very top of the page. It's really interesting, but you can just get buried in all this data, you really can. It's very, very hard. The other thing Google did really well at quite an early stage, and has contributed a very large amount to all this huge pile of money they're making, is not to just run adverts on the search results pages, but also to run adverts on other people's websites. And it did this by making it very simple for people who ran websites to include a space on their page for an ad effectively brokered by Google. So they became this giant advertising broker with on one side now literally millions of websites willing to run their ads, and on the other side millions of advertisers wanting to advertise. And in the middle, they have this huge data processing machinery, which can effectively put your ads on exactly where you want it. And again, it's done on the same bidding basis. So I've deliberately picked out some that, unlike the other speakers, perhaps aren't relevant to this sector. But again, here's an automotive one. So it's a page on Auto Trader. It's the most important site if you're selling cars and vans. And it's the normal listings down, but on the right-hand side, you'll see a proper image advertisement, which has been booked through Google and is being clicked on a pay-per-click basis. And any of you can do this. If you don't, many of you will, I'm sure, already, but it's very easy to do. Just set up the ads and just run with them. And all you need to do to set up an ad like the one you just saw on the right there is to bung up a couple of photographs and a logo and a couple of lines of words. And something that Google does incredibly well is deliver stuff in real time. Now, if you're someone who thinks that display advertising on people's websites are old-fashioned banner adverts where you have to design the advert and it's fixed, no more. From that information you've given Google, it will create dozens and dozens of potential advert sizes and shapes and copy to fit in with whatever website it's on, and it will put them on the fly. So here's just half a dozen from what information we gave it. And you can select where the adverts run by enormous number of things, not just individually, but you can make them overlap as well. So placements, you can specify the sites you want your ad to appear on. You can give it a huge long list, say just show it on any one of these sites, and we have advertisers who we've basically compiled a list of about 1,000 websites that are relevant for them to do with maybe manufacturing. You can do topics, so you could just say, show my ads on any sites to do with, say, manufacturing, and let Google decide which sites are manufacturing. You can do it by demographics, so things like age and that sort of thing, not so useful in industrial. Audiences, there's so many different audiences you can do. The big one that everybody knows and uses is what's called remarketing. So you tag people who've been to your website, and then you show them ads all around the web that, in the knowledge they've already been to your website, and you might give them special offers. I mean, the obvious way of doing that, ones you see if you go to Marks and Spencer or John Lewis and you look at some socks, you get ads forever about socks all around the web. Do that a bit more judiciously, and you can do that for industrial machinery very effectively. And definitely not least is keywords. So you could just say to Google, show my ads on pages on any website that mentions the term image processing or something like that. And finally, of course, you can geographically target brilliantly. So you can do it down to postcode level if you want. And you can make the areas overlap. So for example, what you see in the map here is a company where they're advertising throughout the UK, which is why the whole thing's blue, but within 10 or 20 miles of Woking, they've actually increased their bid because they know that people locally really interact well with them, and they want to make sure their ads are more strongly promoted to people locally, but they still want to go UK-wide, and it could be worldwide or anything. So what do we do with all that stuff? All this information that Google's giving us back, we try to put it into something that's digestible by advertisers like yourselves. And it's really simple. If you're just going to measure on clicks, you can start to compare everything online. So we know that with an AdWords campaign, or a Google Ads campaign, should I say now, let's say we're paying £2 a click, and we know that we can just keep paying £2 a click and get more and more. We've got a nailed-on figure of how much we can buy clicks to our website, visit to our websites for, £2 a time. Then we can go to our Google Analytics, look at our website traffic, look at all these other websites where we might be advertising, but we're paying a fixed rate for, or we might be in directories. Many of them will be free. And we can say that's how many clicks we got from that website, and we can put a notional value on them of £2 because we know with that £2 we could have just gone on to Google and bought that traffic. So you can then say, okay, over a period of, in this case this is from a client, looking at a year, which is, some of the numbers are a bit disappointing, ouch. From Connecting Industry, they got 73 clicks in a year. They now know that they're worth £2 each. It doesn't matter what they paid for them, they can buy clicks for £2 each. So it was worth £146. Now if they paid £75 to be on Connecting Industry for the year, bargain, better value than Google Ads. But you can start to compare this stuff. And when you go through them, you find that some of them are, pretty dire. Now, you can get better information. You can start measuring actions on your website and put a value on those. So you could say, okay, for the AdWords, the Google Ads campaign, it was £2 a click. But actually, I measured the number of people on the site who properly spent some time on the site, looked around a few pages, and it worked out at about £5 a click to get one of those people. But you can, again, measure all the other sites on exactly the same basis. And this is the sort of detail you need. Similarly, you could have gone all the way to how many people filled in an inquiry form. And with Google Ads, again, you can put a figure. Okay, we know across the year we could get an inquiry, we could buy a name and address inquiry for £88, whatever. So again, you can start to look at the other sites and say, well, how many did they send you? And we know they're worth £88 each. So really, the thrust of what I'm trying to say is we've gone all the way back to where we were 30 years ago now, although we have much better data, and we can measure stuff, and we can compare stuff. And the publishing industry tried to wipe that away and say, sorry, we're not going to let you measure if we're any good anymore. We'll sell advertising based on how good our advertising sales reps are, and you've got nothing else to go on. And brilliantly, that's now changed completely. I said I wanted to go back to why I was kind of quite pleased in a way that we lost our biggest client on Monday. They were a machinery manufacturer, an industrial CNC machinery manufacturer, and they started with us about 5 years ago doing some advertising just in the UK, and they said, we can spend maybe £500, £750 a month, Chris, and that was fine. So we took them on, and it worked for them, and they started spending some more money because it scaled up. It was worth it. They knew how much, they compared other advertising sources, just how much the value of a lead was worth in their opinion. And it was worth it, so they threw some more money at it, and some more. And then they started doing advertising in the USA and Canada, where they had sales offices as well, and more and more. And by last month, they were spending £15,000 a month with us. At that point, much as I'd love their business, and I love their margin, and I love what we were making on it, and all that sort of thing, they could have employed someone full-time, in-house, to run just their Google Ads, and that's exactly what they've done. And I'm kind of happy for them, because it's really worked. And here's the thing, when they got to about half the level of spending they're at now, they'd already stopped doing all other advertising. I think they did a couple of trade shows, and that was it, because nothing else compared. That was when they were at half. The expansion since then, they've actually found the money, because, why not find the money if it works for you? They've done that. And, as I say, I'm thrilled for them. They're doing really brilliantly. They're spending unbelievable amounts of money by the terms of what they thought they would do in advertising ever. And yet it's working for them. It really is paying for itself. And that's the best thing of all. I'm really thrilled about that. So that's where we are. As a little plug, we do what's called inbound marketing a lot for our own business. I write a blog post every single day. And it goes out to about 3,000 people. They're all industrial marketing managers in the UK, in engineering mainly, and a few scientific companies. And it's just, 100, 200 words, a useful tip every day, some news, that sort of thing. And so we've built up to a list now of something like over 3,000 get this, which is tremendous. And then when people want us to do their Google Ads advertising for them, they'll come to us in their own time. So we don't have to employ any salespeople anymore. They get this every day. And I know it gets read because on a few occasions where the system's gone wrong and it hasn't gone out at 7 o'clock in the morning, I get emails back from people saying, where's today's article? People seem to come into work, get a cup of coffee and sit down to see what rubbish Chris has written today. But I'm fine with that. It's cool. If any of you are not on the circulation and would like to be, just give me a business card and I'll send you an email where you can sign up. Or if you think someone else at your company who's more involved in marketing wants to get it, it's a daily email, it's really harmless, and people really do seem to love it. I get some terrific feedback, and I really enjoy writing it as well. So thanks very much.